Welcome back. So, for today's explainer, we're heading deep into the sweltering, unforgiving jungles and muddy estuaries of Southeast Asia. We're looking at what is absolutely one of the most tantalizing mysteries of the Second World War. Now, I know you've probably heard legends of lost gold, right? But what happens when a massive, highly organized military force buries staggering amounts of stolen wealth and then, well, practically vanishes? Stick around because today we're diving into Operation Golden Lily and the lost World War II treasure of Burma's Arakan coast. Moving right into Section 1, the hook and the legend.
Listen, we aren't just talking about a few loose coins dropped by retreating soldiers here. We are talking about an entire landscape completely shrouded in whispers of unimaginable hidden wealth. Locals actually remember Japanese soldiers hoarding stashes of gemstones that were described, and I love this detail, as being shinier than sticky rice. This incredibly vivid quote comes straight from the oral histories passed down through generations in the border and coastal regions of Burma. It's just one of those amazing, tangible details that instantly brings the whole legend to life, you know? It really makes you realize that to the people who saw it, this wealth was very, very real.
Okay, let's dive into this. To understand the context, we really have to look at Kin no Yuri, or Operation Golden Lily. This wasn't some rogue group of soldiers just randomly looting villages on their way out. No, it was a highly systematic, state-sanctioned program overseen directly by members of the Japanese Imperial Family during the final stages of the war. Their goal was ruthlessly clear: strip occupied territories of their central bank reserves, precious gems, and get this, even the gold statues ripped right out of Buddhist monasteries. We're talking about a massive extraction of wealth on an imperial scale. Now, you might be wondering, why target the Arakan coast specifically? While the Siam-Burma Railway usually gets all the Hollywood attention, this coastal region was actually incredibly lucrative. Historically, it was home to wealthy Indianized kingdoms like WWII and WWII. These civilizations had accumulated substantial wealth over centuries, mostly through ancient maritime trade networks. They even minted their own highly distinct Arakanese silver coins that featured the bull of the Chandra dynasty. So when the Japanese forces rolled through, they weren't just grabbing modern currency, they were literally plundering the deep historical wealth of ancient empires. That brings us to Section 2, the trap.
Taking the treasure is one thing, right? But keeping it is an entirely different logistical nightmare. Let's look at 1945, because this is where the entire operation completely unravels. The advancing Allied forces are closing in fast. Suddenly, an Allied naval blockade is imposed. Now, the original plan was to ship all this centralized plunder back to Japan from ports like Rangoon. But with the blockade, moving wealth by sea becomes far too dangerous. The Japanese are essentially caught in a trap. Reports even suggest that treasure ships were deliberately scuttled, literally sunk by their own crews right there in Burmese coastal waters just to avoid capture. With the sea route totally cut off, retreating units had to make a drastic, desperate tactical pivot. They had to shift to overland transport, carrying stashes of wealth on foot through dense, unforgiving jungles. And this leads right into Section 3, desperate measures. Think about it. When you're trapped behind enemy lines with literally tons of gold and the British Army breathing down your neck, you use what you know. And what the retreating Japanese army knew was military engineering. Their concealment methods were grim, precise, and highly organized. Step 1, they dug complex underground tunnels and utilized natural caves, modifying them for secure, long-term storage. Step 2, and this is wild, they didn't just bury it in the dirt. They actually installed man-made ventilation shafts to preserve the structural integrity of the vaults. Finally, Step 3, they used explosives to create dynamited entry points, literally blowing up the doorways to seal the vaults off from the outside world. They were essentially building subterranean fortresses just for the gold.
5. That staggering number is actually the source of much of what we know about this incredible engineering. And it comes from veterans' deathbed confessions decades later. One specific veteran confessed that he personally helped bury exactly 5 truckloads of gold bullion and statues. This wasn't a choice made lightly either. He did it under the direct orders of a retreating general who decided he would much rather bury the assets deep in the Burmese earth than surrender them to the advancing British forces. Just imagine that, 5 entire truckloads. But securing the physical location, that was only half the battle. They had to secure the information, too. And this brings us to what we call the officer's secret. Oral histories from the coastal regions record a pretty horrifying human element to this mystery. Japanese officers who possessed the exact coordinates to these dynamited vaults fiercely guarded them. In many cases, they literally took the secrets to their graves by committing ceremonial seppuku, suicide. They chose death just to ensure the locations of this stolen wealth would never, ever be extracted from them. Which brings us to Section 4,
the muddy reality.
We've talked about the cinematic legends, the suicide pacts, and the hidden caves, but the harsh archaeological truth is a stark contrast. It's so easy for us to get swept up in the romance of hidden gold, especially since the massive scale of Operation Golden Lily was undeniably validated elsewhere in the world. I mean, most famously with the discovery of a solid 1-ton golden Buddha by Rogelio Roxas in the Philippines. So we know for sure the gold existed. But in Burma? Well, decades of intense searching along these retreat routes primarily yield empty hands. Searchers mostly just find military detritus, rusted rifles, canteens, and structural engineering data that proves the tunnels existed. But they don't find the gold. And this matters today because it perfectly captures our enduring human obsession with buried secrets, crashing headfirst into the unforgiving reality of geography.
And this brilliantly illustrates why they can't find it. It really all comes down to a single number, 25. That represents 25 feet, or about 7.6 meters, of solid mud. You see, environmentally, Burma's river systems and coastal confluences have incredibly high siltation rates. Over the last 80 years, the Earth itself has acted as a giant natural vault. These tunnels, these dynamited caves we talked about, are now buried under upwards of 25 feet of thick, wet, impenetrable mud. It makes recovery, even with all of our modern technology, almost entirely impossible. Which leaves us with this final, lingering question. Will the Earth's impenetrable natural vault ever truly be opened? We know the operation was real. We know the wealth of ancient kingdoms was stolen. And we know the exact, desperate military engineering used to hide it. But after 80 years of silt and mud swallowing those secrets whole, it seems the treasure of the Arakan coast belongs to the jungle now. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep your curiosity sharp, and I'll see you next time.